They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes it's served at a corporate dinner party in front of your husband's entire company. For 8 years, my husband Michael convinced me I wasn't good enough for his world. Too plain, too simple, not executive wife material. The night of his biggest promotion dinner, he looked me straight in the eye and told me to stay home because I'd embarrass him. So I did what any woman with a shred of dignity left would do, I showed up anyway. What happened next completely destroyed his career and changed my life forever. You won't believe how this story ends. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Amanda, and I used to be one of those women who made excuses for everything. You know the type, always apologizing, always believing that if I just tried harder, loved better, looked prettier, that somehow I'd finally be enough. I had a master's degree in art history, used to teach at the community college, and once dreamed of curating exhibits that would inspire people. But somewhere along the way, I let those dreams get smaller and smaller until they disappeared completely. It started 8 years ago at our wedding. I should have seen the red flags then, but love makes you blind, doesn't it? Michael's mother took one look at me in my off-the-rack wedding dress and said to him, right in front of me, "She's quaint, Michael. Are you sure she fits your ambitions, dear?" I waited for him to defend me, to tell his mother how lucky he was to have found someone who loved him unconditionally. Instead, Michael just smiled and said, "Don't worry, Mom. Amanda just needs some refinement." Refinement. That word would haunt me for years. I told myself he was just nervous about his mother's approval, that he didn't mean it the way it sounded. But looking back now, that was the moment I started shrinking myself to fit into the box he'd built for me in his mind. 6 years ago, I got offered my dream job as a curator at the city's main museum. I was so excited I could barely contain myself when I called Michael at work. "Honey, you won't believe it. The museum wants me to curate their new contemporary art wing." I remember the silence on the other end of the line, how my excitement slowly deflated like a punctured balloon. "Amanda, we need to talk about this when I get home," he said in that tone, the one that made me feel like a child who'd done something wrong. That night, he sat me down like I was getting a performance review. "Honey, that salary is embarrassing. What will people think when they find out my wife makes less in a year than I make in 2 months? Besides, I need a wife who can focus on supporting my career. This is a crucial time for me at Harrison and Associates." I tried to argue, told him how much this meant to me, how I'd been working toward this for years. But Michael had a way of making his logic sound so reasonable, so practical. "We're building something together, Amanda. Sometimes that means making sacrifices. I'm doing this for us, for our future." So I turned down the job. I told the museum I'd changed my mind, watched the disappointment in the curator's eyes when she realized they'd have to start their search all over again. Michael took me out to dinner that night to celebrate my mature decision. I smiled and pretended to be happy while inside, a part of me died. The criticism became constant after that. It was never cruel enough to call abuse. Michael was too smart for that. It was always wrapped in concern, in love, in wanting me to be the best version of myself. "Amanda, you're wearing that to the Christmas party. These are important people. Can't you try to look more executive?" I'd change outfits 3 times, each choice met with a subtle shake of his head or a disappointed sigh. "Maybe we should get you some media training, honey. You tend to ramble when you're nervous, and it reflects on both of us. That hairstyle is very suburban. Perhaps something more sophisticated." Slowly, I stopped expressing opinions in public, stopped wearing colors I loved, stopped talking about art or books or anything that made me feel passionate, because passion, according to Michael, was unseemly in professional settings. The worst part was how he started attending company events without me. At first, he'd say, "You wouldn't enjoy it, honey. Lots of boring business talk." Then it became, "These events run so late, and you need your sleep." Eventually, he stopped making excuses at all. I'd see photos on social media later, Michael laughing with other couples, his arm around the empty space where I should have been standing. When I'd ask about it, he'd get that patient look on his face, like he was explaining something to a particularly slow student. "Amanda, you have to understand, these people, they're used to a certain type of woman. Executive wives who went to the right schools, who know how to navigate these social situations. I'm protecting you from feeling uncomfortable." I believed him. God help me, I actually believed that my husband was protecting me by excluding me from his life. 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Michael came home with news that should have been our celebration. He'd been promoted to senior vice president at Harrison and Associates. It was the position he'd been working toward for years, complete with a corner office, company car, and a salary that would change our entire lifestyle. I was genuinely happy for him. Despite everything, despite how small he'd made me feel, I still loved this man and wanted his success. I threw my arms around him, told him how proud I was, how much he deserved this recognition. That's when I overheard the phone call that shattered my remaining illusions. Michael was in his office, door slightly ajar, talking to someone from work. I was about to knock when I heard my name. Yeah, Amanda's got some health issues. Nothing serious, but she's not really up for social events. I'm basically flying solo these days. It's probably for the best. She gets overwhelmed in professional settings. Health issues. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand raised to knock, as the truth hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't protecting me from embarrassment. He was embarrassed by me. So embarrassed that he was lying to his colleagues about why I never appeared at his side. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time in years. Really looked. I saw a woman who had become a ghost in her own life, who had shrunk so small that her own husband could pretend she didn't exist. But I also saw something else. I saw the woman I used to be, buried but not dead, waiting for someone to remember she was worth fighting for. I just never imagined that someone would have to be me. The promotion dinner was scheduled for Friday night at Ellie Bernardine, the kind of restaurant where the waiters wear white gloves and the wine list costs more than most people's rent. For 3 weeks, I'd been secretly preparing for this moment, the night I'd finally get to celebrate my husband's success by his side. I'd bought a black dress from Nordstrom, something elegant but not too flashy. I'd practiced conversation topics in the mirror, researched the other executives' backgrounds, even took an online etiquette course because I wanted everything to be perfect. This was Michael's big moment, and I was determined to be the wife he could be proud of. Friday morning, I woke up with butterflies dancing in my stomach. I'd made a hair appointment, planned my makeup, laid out jewelry that complemented the dress. I felt like a teenager getting ready for prom, nervous but excited. Michael was in the bathroom, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. He always got particular about his appearance before big events, and I loved watching him transform into the confident executive the world saw. I can't wait to finally meet Mr. Harrison tonight, I said, applying mascara carefully. I've heard so much about him over the years. Michael's hand stilled on his tie. In the mirror, I watched his expression change, that familiar look crossing his face, the one that always made my stomach drop. Oh, about tonight. He started, his voice taking on that careful, measured tone. I think it's best if you stay home. The mascara wand slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the marble counter. What? But this is your promotion dinner. I want to celebrate with you. Michael turned to face me, his expression a mixture of pity and frustration. Amanda, be realistic. This is the CEO, board members, their wives. These are sophisticated people. You'd be out of your element. I felt the familiar sting of his words, but this time something was different. This time I fought back. I bought a dress. I'd been preparing for weeks. I even took that etiquette course you mentioned. One dress doesn't change who you are, Amanda. His words cut through me like glass. Look, I love you, but let's not pretend you're cut out for this world. These women went to Yale, Harvard, Wellesley. They speak 3 languages and sit on charity boards. They'll eat you alive. I stared at him, this man I'd loved for 8 years, watching him casually destroy what was left of my self-worth. So what am I supposed to do? Sit at home while you celebrate the biggest night of your career? Stay home, order Chinese, watch Netflix? I'll tell you all about it later. He said it so casually, like he was discussing weekend plans instead of excluding me from one of the most important moments of our marriage. After he left, I sat in our empty house still wearing my bathrobe, the beautiful black dress hanging mockingly in the closet. I ordered the Chinese food like an obedient wife, tried to convince myself he was right. Maybe I would have embarrassed him. Maybe I wasn't sophisticated enough for his world. But then I saw a photo tucked behind our wedding picture on the dresser. It was from our early dating days, and Michael had written on the back in his careful handwriting, to my brilliant, beautiful Amanda, you make me want to be better. Brilliant, beautiful. When had he stopped seeing me that way? When had I stopped seeing myself that way? I looked at myself in the full-length mirror, really looked. I saw a woman who had a master's degree who could discuss art history for hours, who once commanded a classroom full of students hanging on every word about Renaissance painters and modern sculptors. I saw someone who had given up everything, her career, her dreams, her very identity, for a man who repaid her sacrifice by hiding her existence. Something shifted in that moment. A spark of the old Amanda, the one who had opinions and dreams and refused to apologize for taking up space. I put on the black dress. An hour later, I was sitting at the bar at Ellie Bernardine, my hands trembling slightly as I ordered a glass of wine. I hadn't planned this moment. I'd simply gotten in my car and driven here, propelled by a force I barely recognized as my own courage. The bartender was a kind-looking woman in her 60s with silver hair and knowing eyes. "Special occasion?" she asked, sliding my wine across the polished bar. "My husband's promotion dinner," I said, gesturing toward the private dining room where I could see Michael laughing with his colleagues. "I'm supporting him from a distance." She raised an eyebrow. "Honey, why aren't you in there with him?" I felt my cheeks burn with shame. "He thought it was better if I stayed home tonight. Said I wouldn't fit in with his crowd." The bartender's expression hardened. Any man who's ashamed to have his wife beside him during his moment of triumph doesn't deserve either the wife or the triumph. Trying to change the subject from my painful situation, I noticed a beautiful reproduction of a Monet painting hanging behind the bar. "That's gorgeous," I said, pointing to the water lilies. "Is that from the new exhibition at the Met?" I read they acquired 3 pieces from his late period that haven't been displayed publicly in decades. The bartender's face lit up. "You know your art." "Yes," the restaurant owner is a huge Impressionist fan. "Most people walk right past it without a second glance." Monet's use of light in his later works was revolutionary, I found myself saying, feeling more animated than I had in months. People think Impressionism is just pretty pictures, but he was exploring how perception itself changes with time and atmosphere. The way he painted the same haystack or cathedral at different times of day was really about the nature of reality itself. For the first time in years, I was talking about something I was passionate about, something that made me feel like myself again. Before the bartender could respond, a distinguished older man approached us. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. I'd seen his photo in the company newsletter enough times to recognize him immediately. "James Harrison, CEO of Harrison and Associates." "Excuse me," he said, his voice warm and genuinely interested. "I couldn't help but overhear your discussion about the Monet exhibition. Are you with someone here tonight?" My heart started pounding. This was Michael's boss, the man whose opinion could make or break careers. I was supposed to be invisible, non-existent, safely tucked away at home with my Chinese takeout. "Oh, I was just leaving actually," I stammered, gathering my purse. "Please don't," he said, settling onto the stool beside me. It's rare to find someone who truly understands art beyond its investment value. "I take it you have a background in art history." Something in his genuine interest, his respectful attention, awakened the professor in me. "I have my master's degree. I used to teach, actually, before." I trailed off, not sure how to explain that I'd given up everything to become someone's invisible wife. "Before what?" His question was gentle, without judgment. "Before I got married and decided to focus on supporting my husband's career instead." Mr. Harrison studied me with sharp, intelligent eyes. "And what does your husband do?" "He works for you, actually." "Michael Mitchell. He just got promoted to senior vice president." The CEO's expression shifted, something I couldn't quite read crossing his features. "Michael Mitchell is your husband?" I nodded, suddenly terrified I'd said something wrong, that I'd somehow jeopardized Michael's position. "How interesting," Mr. Harrison said slowly. "He's never mentioned having a wife." The words hit me like a physical blow. Never mentioned having a wife. I sat there, wine glass frozen halfway to my lips, as the full weight of my husband's betrayal crashed over me. 8 years of marriage, and I was so insignificant that he'd erased me completely from his professional life. "Mrs. Mitchell," Mr. Harrison continued, his voice gentle but firm, "I've been looking for someone with your exact qualifications. We're launching a corporate cultural initiative, and I need someone to curate our art collection and develop community outreach programs. Would you be interested in discussing this further?" I blinked at him, certain I'd misheard. "You want to offer me a job? I'd like you to join our table for dinner so we can discuss it properly." He stood, extending his arm with old-fashioned courtesy. "Besides, I think it's time Michael's colleagues met the brilliant woman he's been hiding from us." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was at the moment of truth. I could slink home like Michael expected, or I could choose myself for the first time in 8 years. I took Mr. Harrison's arm. Walking into that dining room felt like stepping onto a stage. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as heads turned to see the CEO escorting an unknown woman to the head table. I caught sight of Michael's face and watched it cycle through confusion, recognition, and then pure rage. His jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitching from across the room. "Everyone," Mr. Harrison announced, his voice carrying easily across the room, "I'd like you to meet Amanda Mitchell, our new cultural arts consultant." Michael's hand gripped his wine glass so hard his knuckles went white. I watched him struggle to maintain his composure as whispers rippled around the table. His carefully constructed image was cracking right before his eyes. "Amanda has been sharing fascinating insights about integrating art programs with corporate social responsibility," Mr. Harrison continued smoothly, pulling out the chair directly beside him, the seat of honor. "I'm particularly interested in her ideas about employee art therapy initiatives." As I sat down, I felt something awakening in me that had been dormant for years. These people, Michael's intimidating, sophisticated colleagues, were hanging on my words as I explained how art could improve workplace mental health and community engagement. "The program I developed at the community college saw a 40% improvement in student retention," I found myself saying, my voice growing stronger with each word. "When people have creative outlets, they're more resilient, more innovative." Board members leaned forward, asking thoughtful questions. Their wives, these supposedly superior women I'd been so terrified of meeting, were nodding enthusiastically, sharing stories of their own community involvement. Michael's face had progressed from rage to barely contained panic. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how to regain control of the situation. "This is exactly what we need for our wellness initiative," declared Margaret Chen, the chief financial officer. "Amanda, your background is perfect for what we're trying to accomplish." Michael finally couldn't contain himself any longer. He leaned forward, his voice tight with forced cheerfulness. "I'm sorry, Amanda, but what are you doing here? I thought we agreed you'd stay home tonight." The table fell silent. Mr. Harrison's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes as he turned his attention to Michael. "We didn't agree on anything, Michael," I said quietly. "You decided for me." Michael's laugh was strained, artificial. "Well, this is all very flattering, but Amanda really should be focusing on home life right now. We're trying to start a family, and she's been having some health issues. Nothing serious, of course, but stop." Mr. Harrison's voice cut through Michael's rambling like a blade. The single word carried such authority that Michael's mouth snapped shut immediately. "Mr. Mitchell, are you suggesting that your wife is incapable of managing both a career and a personal life? Because that would be a rather outdated and, frankly, insulting perspective." Michael's face flushed red. "I didn't mean. I just think what you think about your wife's capabilities is irrelevant to this conversation," Mr. Harrison continued, his tone professionally icy. "What matters is that Amanda has demonstrated exceptional qualifications for a position we desperately need to fill. Her educational background, her teaching experience, and her innovative ideas about community engagement make her an ideal candidate." I watched Michael shrink in his chair as his boss, the man whose approval he'd craved for years, publicly dismantled his attempt to control me. "Furthermore," Mr. Harrison added, "I find it curious that in all our conversations about work-life balance and employee wellness, you've never once mentioned having a wife with expertise in exactly the areas we've been trying to develop. One might wonder why." Michael opened his mouth, then closed it, looking like a fish gasping for air. Around the table, his colleagues were exchanging meaningful glances, clearly reassessing everything they thought they knew about him. "Amanda," Mr. Harrison said, turning back to me with genuine warmth, "I'm prepared to offer you the consultant position immediately. The salary would be $120,000 annually, plus benefits and a budget for your programs." I nearly choked on my wine. That was more than Michael's old salary, and significantly more than I'd ever dreamed of earning. But more than the money, it was the respect, the recognition of my worth that made my decision easy. "I accept," I said without hesitation. Michael looked like he'd been slapped. His colleagues continued their conversations around us, but I could feel their curious glances, could practically hear them filing away this domestic drama for future office gossip. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of congratulations and business discussions. Michael sat in sullen silence, occasionally trying to interject with comments about what Amanda really meant or her tendency to get carried away. Each time, Mr. Harrison or one of the other executives would redirect the conversation back to me, treating Michael's interruptions like the irrelevant noise they were. By the time we left the restaurant, Michael's carefully cultivated professional image had been thoroughly shattered. He'd been revealed as exactly what he was, a man so insecure that he had to diminish his own wife to feel important. The ride home was Arctic silence for the first 10 minutes. I could feel Michael's rage radiating from the driver's seat like heat from a furnace. Finally, he exploded. "What the hell was that, Amanda? You completely humiliated me in front of my colleagues, my boss. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I turned to look at him, really look at him, and for the first time in years, I saw him clearly. This angry, controlling man bore no resemblance to the person I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Or maybe he did, and I'd just been too naive to see it. "I humiliated you?" I asked quietly. "Michael, you told your boss I didn't exist. You lied to your colleagues about having a wife. You've spent 8 years convincing me I wasn't good enough for your world, and tonight I discovered that you weren't even letting me try." "I was protecting you," he snapped, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. "Those people would have torn you apart." "No, Michael. You were protecting yourself. You were ashamed of me, so you erased me." "That's not." "I never said I was ashamed. You didn't have to say it." I felt a strange calmness settling over me, a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. But tonight, I saw what respect looks like. I saw what it feels like when someone values my intelligence, my education, my ideas. And I realized that I haven't felt that from you in so long that I'd forgotten what it was like. We'd pulled into our driveway, but neither of us moved to get out of the car. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 8 years of unspoken resentments and accumulated damage. "So what are you saying?" Michael's voice was quiet now, almost fearful. I looked at our house, the house where I'd made myself smaller and smaller until I'd nearly disappeared entirely. Then I looked at my husband, this man who'd convinced me I was lucky he'd settled for someone like me. "I'm saying I'm done, Michael. I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done pretending that your embarrassment is my problem to solve. I'm done being your invisible wife." "Amanda, you're being dramatic. We can work this out. We always do." But I was already reaching for the door handle, already stepping out of the car and away from a life that had never really been mine. For the first time in 8 years, I knew exactly who I was and what I was worth. And I was worth so much more than this. Within a week, I'd moved into my own apartment downtown, close to the office where I now spent my days doing work that mattered. My art therapy program became the company's flagship wellness initiative. Mr. Harrison became not just my boss but my mentor, someone who saw my potential and encouraged me to reach for it. 6 months later, I discovered the final twist in this story. Michael hadn't just been ashamed of me, he'd been hiding me to cover up his 2-year affair with his secretary. All those nights I'd made excuses for his absence, all those events I'd been excluded from, he'd been building a double life. The divorce was swift and satisfying. Michael's reputation never recovered from the whispers about how he'd treated his wife. As for me, I got everything I'd given up and more: my career, my confidence, and most importantly, my sense of self-worth. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planning to hurt someone. Sometimes it's simply choosing to stop letting them hurt you. Sometimes it's showing up when they tell you to stay home, and discovering that you were never the problem they were. Michael thought I wasn't classy enough for his world. Turns out, he wasn't good enough for mine. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of sweet revenge. Let me know in the comments, have you ever discovered your own strength in your darkest moment? I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me to keep sharing. Until next time, remember you are enough, exactly as you are.